Welcome, everybody. Welcome to this month's Get Clients University member-led masterclass. This is a very special masterclass, guys. Today, we're going to be talking about the elephant in the room, the big elephant in all of the digital marketing rooms, it feels like, and that is compliance, namely FTC compliance, and how you guys can stay safe. So who better to talk about how to protect your business than two guys that have been around this block for decades now. You guys will recognize Anik Sengal, who has been just a legend in the digital marketing space. And you'll also know Greg Christensen, who is helping us, by the way, helping many others protect their business from any compliance issues. So I'm going to let them take over. I'm going to mute. I'm going to learn along with you guys. And yeah, we're going to get started. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Anything you want to throw out there, Anik, and go ahead and jump into it.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Carla. Hey, guys, this is Anik, and Greg Christiansen is joining us as well. We will keep today fairly tight, if that's okay for everybody. So we're hoping to go maybe 30 minutes, and then we can do a little bit of Q&A as well. As you can tell, Greg's got his tie and shirt on. Those are the serious days. When Greg comes with shirt and tie, that means it's serious. It's a legal day. All right. So a little bit about my story. Oh, you got a jacket on now too. It just went up one more level of
stepping up the game on it. Real. Come on, man. It's very real now.
Went up. Now he's a real lawyer, everybody. Yes. Now he's a real lawyer. So my name is Anik, guys. I have been doing online marketing for over 21 years, and I have done some pretty big things. I've done very well. And for the longest time, I was under the impression that I had done good by everybody, carried a great reputation, have had nothing but immaculate records with my students. We've never been sued. We had a great chargeback rate, great refund rate, super low, usually about half of the industry average from what I was seeing. And had a customer support team running 24/7, 36-minute average response time. We were doing 20,000+ transactions a year, getting about 20 BBB complaints a year on that, all resolved. A rating at the BBB. So I'll tell you what, we were scaling, growing. We were about to hit 40 million a year at probably over a 20% margin in 2022. I was getting ready to step down as CEO. I had just had my wife had just delivered our first baby girl, and my company was about to be bought for multi-deca millions, and it was going to be all a big, rosy, amazing story. And I was getting ready to take a year off and be dad and just, get ready to start the next thing. Except 3 weeks after my baby girl is born and I'm back at the office. I'm only back at the office for 2 days. I'm actually on the phone with our HR attorney to get ready to promote my right hand to be the CEO so I could step down so that he could shepherd the company through the acquisition. And I get the dreaded FedEx package in the mail. And then basically instantly knew when that FedEx package was being walked in through the door to me because my other lawyer at that time, my FTC attorney, was calling me back to back on my phone. Right? So I was on my office line talking to the HR attorney. My FTC attorney at that time is calling me. And the minute I touched that FedEx package, my entire life changed forever and not for the better. It went to shit for 18 months. People always ask me, hey, how's it, what's it like to get sued by the FTC? And I basically said this. I said, guys, imagine where hell goes when hell has been bad. That's where I was for 18 months or 2 years. That's not me saying anything negative about them. They're actually very professional. They were mostly easy to work with. They gave us extensions. They worked with us. They were cordial. It's not that. It's just the torture you go through and the fact that the minute I got that notice, I understood one thing. I'm a publishing company. I publish other people's products at that time. So I knew I'd have to shut down most of my company. So in a moment's notice, we shut down a $40 million a year company. Not because we were told we had to, but because we knew that that was the right thing to do at that time. Lost the acquisition, of course. Lost the ability to step down as CEO. Tripled the amount of work I had to do right when my baby was even being born. Lost the dream of selling the company and so many other things. And then entered this world of compliance. And with every passing week, I learned more and more and more and was dumbfounded by the things I learned. About halfway through the case, I transitioned over to Greg Christiansen, who's here today. And we not only did I learn tremendous amounts from him, we actually became friends during a case. It's not common for you to be able to say that an attorney will be your friend. But I was very, very, very fortunate to have him guiding me. And at some point in the process, I realized something. I said, if I've been doing this for over 20 years and I don't know these things, and I've By the way, the other thing that you should know about me, we had an actual paralegal, full-time paralegal in the company. We actually had processes in place to try to make sure we're doing great. We tracked our numbers, watched the KPIs, had no complaints, never been sued, nothing outstanding. We would refund those who needed to be refunded, take care of those who needed to be taken care of. I had a whole department specifically to make sure customers are taken care of. That was not customer support. There was like another department above them. And I just never really thought I was in those crosshairs. I thought we were doing it right. And so halfway through, I asked Greg, I said, Greg, if I don't know this stuff, there's no chance that other people know it. I mean, if I don't know it, other people in our industry aren't going to know it. So I said, hey, would you be willing to write this book with me so that we can help get the message out and actually teach people what compliance truly is? I don't want another legal manual because the rest of us marketers, we don't understand that terminology. I want something translated into simple talk, eighth grader talk, 8-year-old talk. And he not only partaked and helped me write this book, but we decided to partner together. And now we've built a whole mission. Greg and I jokingly call it the compliance
Revolution.
revolution, the compliance
Sorry,
revolution,
beating you to
which
it.
has begun. But that's a little bit about me. I got and eventually settled for $2.5 million. If you ask me how much it cost me, it's deca millions. 15 million if you start to include all the other costs, the legal costs, the discovery costs, the opportunity costs, the lost profits, but it's way more. It's deca millions because I lost an acquisition offer. Now, having said that, yeah, I mostly the biggest issue in my entire case, which we turned over 600,000 documents, 16,000 sales calls, came down to 4 words that were, I'm not saying this is the only issue they had with me, but I'm just saying, legally speaking, as Greg has told me, that where they could enforce, it came mostly down to 4 words that were being said on a sales call that usually shock people that I had no idea we're not allowed to say. My attorney at that time never knew it. So with that said, everyone, I'm going to let Greg talk a little bit about him and his history, but I would just tee him up by saying, I've been a marketer for 20 plus years. I have spent literally 7 figures prior to the case in compliance and in dealing with lawyers. And I've never met anyone that understands compliance the way Greg does. And just this morning, I wish I could show you guys a text proof of it, that we're going back and forth. I wrote a headline that he did not like. It was not compliant. But instead of just saying, well, that might, no, we wrote it. We wrote it to a point, I'm happy with it. I think it'll do what I need it to do, and he signed off on it. So even I'm still a student of this, but he just understands it, man. 3 words today in today's headline. I would have never thought 4 words. Again, it's 4 words. What's it with 4 words? It was another 4 words that were in my headline that Greg did not like, and it was, actually, no, sorry, it was 3 words. Paying for itself. I wrote this whole headline, and I said, mostly breaking even, paying for itself. And he was like, that's a claim. I said, shit, I didn't know that. So, Greg, how the hell did you learn all this, man? How'd you get so good at this that you can just
So
read things and quickly pick it up?
I notice the markers like for letter words, for sentence words. I mean, so I'm just saying, yeah, Onyx kind to introduce me like that. But so for the last 20 years since I've practiced law, I've been doing federal regulatory and advertising actions. I started off clerking for the Nevada Supreme Court out of law school, and then I came back to Salt Lake City, Utah, where I was born and raised, and my law partner at the time, we were invited to be second chair on a huge regulatory issue regarding a live event company that was publicly traded. And taking on that work, we did a pretty decent job as second chair and became first chair. And even though we were a small law firm with little experience, we should have never been in that position, but we did well enough that they hired me to be general counsel. And so for 2.5 years after that, I flew across the country and I settled or litigated cases with 23 different state attorney general's offices. And in the middle of that, became very familiar with federal regulation as well as state regulation. So the reason I know things that others don't, one is just being in the room. So I quote Hamilton all the time. I've been in the room. And when you're in the room and you hear things, you get to know and understand concepts of marketing that others, attorneys, don't even think about because they're not in the room. They never had to fight it. I have a client that currently is being sued in California, and they insurance, because he had insurance, company came in and hired their own law firm. And so they asked me to jump on a call with them. And they said, well, hey, have you ever seen anything like this before? And I was like, well, actually, I litigated a case like this in 2008 in California, and because this case is in California, and I outlined the case, and they're like, wait, you were the counsel on that case? Like, yeah, I was. And they looked it up and they were like, you were. It's the one case that they found that was right on point on this issue. And I litigate cases. I was on with one of the state attorney generals yesterday trying to settle a case. I don't like that. That's not my preference. I'd prefer to help people not spend money on attorneys and litigation and lawsuit, and would rather help them understand correct marketing principles. So I'm here as a reference. I mean, Onik, when I hit it off really well, and one of the things that I was hoping to try to help him out was when you get buried in one of these regulatory investigations and settlements, it does destroy your life a little bit. I mean, he's done a fabulous job of maintaining his business and rebuilding, but part of this goal was, why don't we do something together to try to build awareness out there, that people don't have to go through this process that you went through? Because I've been, on my soapbox for the last 20 years trying to help companies do it, but my voice isn't, it's getting out there more and more, thanks to Onik and his platforms. But just understand that there's nothing that you want to do that you can't do. There's just a right and the wrong way to do it. It's understanding the rules. I went to a soccer game last night. Do not play soccer. I was cracking jokes the whole time because I don't know the rules, and people all around me were laughing because they understood I was using like US, American football terms or US or NBA basketball terms, and they were laughing at me because of my ignorance. And when you're ignorant to the rules of the game, you can make mistakes. If I was playing, I wouldn't know what I could or couldn't do. Now, if I'm on the basketball court or playing baseball or football, I understand those rules of engagement, and I can navigate well. So all we're trying to do is to teach marketers a certain rules of engagement, so they understand when playing in the sandbox of marketing practices, there are some do's and there are don'ts, and we're here to help with that.
Yeah, thank you for that, Greg. So everyone, you know, I'll start us off, right? So take about 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes, and I'll start us off with some of the key things that I learned, and then we'll turn it over to you guys for whatever, 15, 20 minutes to ask some questions. It's a wide topic, right? It's a topic that required us to take months to write a book and to create an academy that's multi-hours long, because it's not just, so people will always say this. This is why I named the brand Don't Say That. Because people would come to me and say, how do I say it? I'm like, what do you mean? So I'll give you a prime example. Marketers want to play lawyer with lawyers. Don't do that. So especially lawyers that work for the government, it's just not going to work. So a lot of times marketers will come and say, okay, how to make $10,000 a month. Wait, that's not compliant. I think most marketers don't understand right off the bat that's an express earnings claim. They'll say, oh, okay, yeah, I get it. How you could make $10,000 a month. Still not okay. The FTC has, in my opinion, been brilliant in how they've covered their bases. I call it umbrella insurance, and I'm going to talk you through that in a minute as to like what are the three things that they've created, three rules I find that create this massive umbrella, which basically makes it so as a marketer, don't play lawyer with them. Don't try to add little words here and there, and don't think you're going to need, because I'll tell you what, you might win, maybe, sure, legally but you're going to have to go to court in front of a judge to do it. In front of them, that's not going to stand. So really, it's just not going to work. So don't. But so the four words, right? We'll come back to that in a minute. People always want to know the four words. That was the hook for the webinar. On my sales calls and in the script, funny enough, it wasn't actually asked on every sales call because it was, but it was in the script. And that script had been legally reviewed, by the way. And we had never been told that this is a problem. And it was not legally reviewed by Greg, of course. But when Greg, but when Greg came into the case, he caught it within minutes. He was like, boom, that's your issue. I'm like, damn it, right? Like, how can that be an issue? And so, ready? What is your goal? I'm going to let that sink in. On sales calls, my sales guys would say, what is your goal? And people hate this. People say, what? Can't even say that? Well, here's why. Okay, here's why you can't say it. The person on the other side would say, well, I want to really get my husband back from his job. He works in the oil rigs. He makes about 12,000 a month. And if I could make that, he could be home with me and doesn't have to keep working this tough job. And the salesperson on the other side will say, what? Oh, great goal. Well, we can help you do that. Implied earnings claim, if not express. Like, how else would a salesperson really address that? That's a trap question. You're trapping yourself, no matter what they say, right? So you're going to either embarrass yourself because you're going to do, whoa, 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 now stop there, hold on a second. And there's a nice way to do, like, hey, we don't talk about money and we can't promise any results, which is what the salesperson would have to say. But that could be not all salespeople could pull that off in a good way. So mostly salespeople say, we can help you do that. And that is creating an implied earnings claim. So I learned that. Because I'll tell you, we were good ways through our case, 60, 70%, when we realized that the whole case is just going to come down to our telesales. So here's another thing. If you are doing telesales, one-on-one selling, Zoom selling, whatever, one-on-one selling, you're at a high risk right now because that is something that the FTC is going after more aggressively. Or if you're doing rebill, recurring sales, there's another thing, something called ROSCA. So I understood that there was a ruling in August of 2021, Greg told me, hey, some of these web sales, they're not going to be able to recover funds from that. So they're going to focus on your telesales. So I said, Greg, I feel great about my telesales calls. I've had a paralegal reviewing all the calls that lead to sales. I got a scorecard system. Man, I have been so aggressive and ahead of everything to make sure our sales calls are clean. I'm going to let you audit them, and I'm going to throw a report back at the FTC that says, aha, our calls are good to go. Leave me alone. 5 calls in, Greg calls me and says, I don't think you want to pay me to do any more of these reviews. He's like, you have a problem here. And I know what the problem is going to be. And they're not clean. They're good. I will commend you on the fact that they're better than almost all calls I've ever listened to, but they're not good enough. I said, what the hell? Why? He goes, you've got, what is your goal? And turns out, ladies and gentlemen, at that time, I'm like, you're crazy, man. That's not possibly, turns out, all said and done, hundreds of thousands of dollars later in expenses, that's where they arrived. This is what you're saying on the call. And they call it goal setting. But here's the thing, there's no public mention of the word goal setting. Go ahead right now, I've done this. Go to Google, type in goal setting FTC. There's nothing out there. But Greg has been in the room. So I asked him, how do you know this? Are you just making this up? He said, no, I've been in the room. I've spoken to the director that oversees that department. And they've point blank said, does your client ask this question on a prior case? Yes, that we consider an implied earnings claim. So you have to understand these 3 umbrellas. So I'm going to talk about the umbrellas, and then Greg is going to talk about the next big thing, which is how they got into my company to begin with. The door that was left open, which is testimonials and endorsements, which all marketers love using, and it is their number one way in right now if they're going to come for any case. So the 3 umbrellas are implied earnings claims. That's how they got me on the what is your goal. So you can't. It's okay if you don't say anything. They can still. For example, I never say how much money you're going to make. But you know what I do tell you? Sally makes $10,000 a month. Joe makes $10,000 a month. Jonathan makes $10,000 a month. Marcy makes $10,000 a month. I have now implied. So implied earnings claims is this overarching thing that says, are you implying a specific result? If you are, you better be able to substantiate that and show typicality. Is that the typical result of a typical customer for you? That's where most of us fall apart. We'll talk more about that when Greg talks to you about testimonials. Number 2 umbrella is misrepresentation. Well, that's pretty wide, right? I mean, anything could be misrepresentation, so you have to start being very, very specific. And so that's exactly what happened this morning. There was something in my headline. I noticed I was being very specific and by default creating this kind of a feeling. It could be misrepresentation. It could be an implied claim. So I just took it out so that I take away that feeling. But misrepresentation. All right, ready? Hey, this bonus is for 15 people only. The first 15 to sign up. Most marketers don't even know how to track that. It's misrepresentation. This bonus is worth $5,000. How? Who the hell said it's worth $5,000? You? Where did that value come from? Misrepresentation, right? The third part of the umbrella, this is my favorite. It's their favorite. And this one they do talk a lot about. There is public documentation about it. It's a net impression. So you could break no rules. I could just sit here in front of you and not say a damn word all right, and just have a buy link, and I got gold teeth, gold chain, girls in bikinis, a helicopter behind me, a mansion behind me, 2 Lambos in front of me, and I'm just sitting here staring at you with a buy link. That's the net impression I'm creating, is that if you buy my product, you'll get all these amazing things. So net impression is they say, hey, if we just forget about the words and the intricacies, this is why the whole you could doesn't make a difference. They read the entirety of your sales message. They watch the entirety of your sales message, and they say, it's almost like this. If you showed your sales message to someone off the street who doesn't know you, who's cold to you, who's a cold market, you had them consume the whole thing. At the end of it, you said, what did you take away from that message? And if they turn around and say, damn, it's pretty easy to make $10,000 a month if I follow what he teaches me, that's a problem. That's a net impression, and it doesn't matter what you said. The net impression walked away was that. So, and this is something they talk a lot about. I had a friend of mine whose case closed just before mine, and they did a debriefing call, and they said, hey, they talked to the lawyers. They said, how do we stay out of this trouble in the future? And the FTC attorney said 2 words. You guys need to monitor and watch your net impression. Make sure your net impression is fair, realistic, and not creating false impressions that someone can just easily make a bunch of money. And so this is why I said, when they say don't say that, they don't mean like the words, they mean the thing. Like, just don't say that. Don't do that thing. Don't try to game it. So that was one thing I really wanted to share with everybody here. Sean's like, it's implied through the testimonials. Yes. So now, Sean, thank you for helping us segue into the thing that they seem to be the most bothered about right now, which I guess Greg can speak to why that is such an issue for them. But that was kind of how the case started with me. It's what they mentioned the most in the CID that they sent me. And they publicly have released huge documentation about usage of testimonials and endorsements. So Greg, you want to cover like what's going on in that world and how our attendees can actually be using, or how they shouldn't be using, testimonials and endorsements?
So when a client comes to me and they say, hey, will you do a compliance review of my ad copy, my landing pages, my websites, whatever? The first thing that I go to is, or when I pull up their website, I look and see if they have what are called case studies or success stories or testimonials. And I want to see how they're presenting the experiences of their consumers, their clients. And almost every case, it's done incorrectly. I mean, I actually haven't seen a case where it's been done right when I look at it. And the reason for that is that, as Onyx said, there's different types of claims that are out there. There are basically 3 types of claims the FTC looks at. They look at earnings claims, they look at lifestyle claims, and then they look at performance claims. So those 3 types of claims for this. For an earnings claim is divided into 2 halves. You've got an implied claim and an express claim. An express claim you do see every once in a while, like I see it all the time on YouTube, like make 10 grand in a month doing this new whatever system, join with us now. That's an express earnings claim. So if a client joins and doesn't make $10,000 a month, it's a misrepresentation, and they get sued for that. The second is implied. So the best example of an implied earnings claim is these testimonials. In there, it's basically, look at Bob. Bob joined my high ticket sales program 2 months ago. Month after he completed the coursework, he started generating $7,500 a month. Now he's making $25,000 a month, and he's on task to make about $60,000 a month in the next 2 months. So you should come aboard and be like John. Well, the problem with that is it creates, as Onik was talking about, this net impression. It creates this impression that if I join the program, that I will have the same experience as this client had had. And so, because that's what I'm telling the world, look at John. John's done this awesome work. If you join, you should be like John. We're saying that. And so the FTC cracks very heavily on. In fact, it's the #1 cause of action when they bring a lawsuit. It's the #1 legal theory that they rely on in getting judgments against companies, is this use of these implied earnings claims. #1, because they haven't established anything to the accuracy or truthfulness of the statement. And #2, when you have something out there that you're conveying as the median or the average, but it's somebody who hit a home run, grand slam home run, and you're using them and promoting them as if they are the main part of your business and everybody's having the same experience, it creates an impression that's incorrect. So in order to use a proper testimonial, you have to do certain things. I've broken it down to my 4-step process of using testimonials. Number one, you have releases with them, so you have authorization to use their statements. Number two, you get substantiation to show that what they're saying is true. I always ask clients, like, hey, do you have the documentation to show that Bob made 10 grand in the first 2 months after finishing the course? They're like, why? It's not our statement. Like, but you're using it as a forward-facing advertisement to your potential clients. And the FTC will say that that's misleading and that you have the requirement for substantiation or documented proof of the statement is on you. And if you don't have it, it's almost like you're lying, because the cause of action is false or unsubstantiated earnings claims. So false would be, make 10 grand in a month when nobody's ever done that before. Unsubstantiated is Bob said they made 10 grand a month, but we never asked him for the documentation to prove that. I would look at substantiation like an audit. Like if you've ever been audited by the IRS or an accounting firm, it going in there and proving the statement independent of what the oral testimony actually is. So second, that substantiation, very difficult. A lot of clients won't give it to you. You may be taking statements just right off of Facebook accounts or Trustpilot pages or, direct messages to you or text sent to you. That is not sufficient. I had a client a year and a half ago, we settled with the FTC, and they had a whole bunch of these screenshots. The FTC looked at it and was like, that's not substantiation, doesn't prove anything. Just the fact that they're telling you that it's true, that doesn't do anything. So the third element of the testimonials is using typical examples, not just grabbing the best that are out there and then portraying them to be the average results. I see clients all the time like, I can prove this, Greg. Why can't I use this as an example? And it's like, because it doesn't represent the typical experience of all your other clients. So you can't use that as an example because it's not representative. And lastly, you got to give a proper disclosure. Now, here's what most marketers think. I'm just going to say whatever the heck I want and put a disclosure on it, and I'll be okay. That is not how the law works. Disclosures are inadequate. In the Automators LLC case in August of last year, they had disclosures, but they were giving earnings claims. They didn't disclose. You can't disclose an earnings claim once you make it. So recap 4 elements of testimonials. 1, releases. 2, substantiation. 3, typicality. And 4th, proper disclosure. When I look at those pages that I mentioned to you earlier, when I help a client review it, they don't have any of those. There's no disclosures. They're using earnings claims for their clients. They've never talked to their client about getting substantiation. They're not figuring out what the average consumer's experience is. In fact, they know, like in the Automators LLC case, they were using those examples and testimonials, and they knew that 70 to 80% of their customer support calls were complaints against the company. So all that collectively together, it's bad news bears. And so why do I start there? Because I know that's where the regulatory bodies go. They go straight to look at your testimonials, your success stories, because if you have a whole bunch of claims there and you don't have the 4 elements that I just walked through, it is a laid down win for the FTC. It's like, here's a silver platter. Go ahead and sue us. We're ready to give you whatever you want. Because when you don't have a defense, that's what happens. And so I'm all about 2 things. One is understanding to make it so that the regulatory bodies don't even look your direction. But if they do, to have certain defenses so that I can fight against them. If you don't have that defense, because sometimes it's hard not to get their attention, not from your own fault, but maybe an investigation happened and somebody told them your name. And so they're looking at you. So they're okay. But then you have a defense if they do look at you hard. That's indispensable in my book. But if you don't have that, it's very panicky as an attorney. You have to go to your client and say, I don't know. So that's what I look at first.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, guys, that was perfect. It brought us right to about 30 minutes of kind of giving our version. There's so much more, right? So when it comes to claims, there's 4 types of claims, as I've learned from Greg. There's express. That's very specific. It's probably the one that's most obvious for people to be like, yeah, I shouldn't say that. Then there's implied. That's typically, I find, where a lot of good marketers are still making a big mistake with implied. I mean, I sometimes still write copy, like I got caught this morning with Greg, right? It was like, well, that can't say that. That's an implied claim. Well, okay, good. I didn't catch that. Number 3 is a performance claim. So this goes out to those of you who are going to say, oh, I'm not talking about money, but let me talk to you about how to double your conversion rate or double your webinar show rate or lose 20 pounds in 10 days. Like, these are performance claims, and they also fall under claims. And then the last is lifestyle claims. So all those videos and, with Lamborghinis and helicopters and big mansions and big yachts and all of that stuff, they don't like it. There's many cases where they quote that stuff. They specifically mention those things in the actual complaint letters. I was baffled by that. I never knew that. I didn't think they cared how I shot, and thankfully I never did. So I didn't used to make videos with my cars or anything, but I never knew that was a problem, right? So you go from claims. So when I asked Greg, I'm like, hey, what are the most important things? I remember Greg said claims of any kind, okay, even absolute statements. 9 out of 10 doctors recommend this supplement. Okay, that's a big statement. That's an absolute statement. So show us the studies, show us the backup. How did you get to that number? So absolute statements, anything else that needs substantiation. And then the second one, Greg, was like what he just talked about, testimonials and endorsements. Most marketers fall flat. Boom, right there in seconds. The case is won. And I would say in my case, right, I always think to myself, I'm like, man, I wish, like, they knew that we had a problem. I mean, they knew coming into it that the testimonials I was using were problematic for them. I didn't know they were, but they knew it, right? But still went through absolute hell during the investigation. So it was like, yeah, I mean, the whole time during the 18 months that I thought I was trying to prove myself innocent, I was actually just trying to make sure I wasn't any further guilty, right? It was just like trying to stop the bleed versus like, end the bleed altogether. So I just want everyone here to know that those right out the gate, if there's something you're going to fix in your copy. Now, the first thing people will say is like, oh, dude, copy's not going to convert anymore. I said it too. I did. As a matter of fact, do you know, I don't even know if Greg knows this. I don't think I've ever told Greg this, but there was a period of time, Greg, where I felt like I was going to pull out of this whole compliance education stuff. This is a long time ago, a year ago, because I got so burned, not burned, but so like overwhelmed with compliance. I was like, it just doesn't work. Let me just go buy a Subway franchise. Like, this is just all a big ruse against the information marketing space. It's meant to kill us. And what's the point? Why am I going to teach compliance if I don't actually believe it works? And so without giving up on it, I was like, let me give it one more shot. And right now I've got offers up and running that are converting better than I've ever converted before. I'm being honest. I do worldwide targeting. I'm getting customers in the Philippines and in India and Vietnam and all over the United States and Europe. And my sales pages are Greg approved. I mean, I review them with him and they're not making claims. And if they are making a claim about my own result, they're super substantiated with a ton of context. So that the net impression is not being violated. I was just writing a sales page this morning, and I was actually really excited writing it because I would say it's highly compliant with a few things that I know I'll fix with Greg's review, but it'll convert. There's no doubt in my mind. I 100% know it's going to convert really well, actually. And what I've also noticed is my conversions have stayed great, but my level of customer, my quality of customer has gone like up like never before. So all in all, it's very doable. It's a new muscle. You have to practice a new muscle, and yeah, you're going to have to up level the type of customer you bring in, but through that honesty and through that transparency, you bring a better person in who spends a heck of a lot more money with you, and you get to sleep at night too. So that's kind of our message to the market. Now, there's just so much more that is there that we could never really cover in just even 30 minutes or 45 or an hour. But it's precisely why we're on this mission. Greg, I thought we'd take some questions. This is a good one that's in from, let's see, Sean says, yet they are still saying those claims for 10K per month. How is that possible if it's not allowed? How are marketers? You're playing cat and mouse.
Rational.
You can, you can go, so Sean, you can go rob a bank. I mean, there's, my local bank, the one that I bank at, 2 years ago got robbed. The guy never got caught. Robbing a bank is illegal. Everyone knows that, yet people still do it. You're playing cat and mouse. So if you're making these claims and you're making these statements, you're counting on the fact that you just won't get seen. And if you don't get seen, you won't get sued. But the thing is, they're getting a little bit more thorough and they're growing their resources and they're catching more and more. And they're being really, really, really serious about the rules. Like now, it's no longer about just, oh, you created a lot of complaints, so the FTC came to get you. It's like, nope, you broke the rules, so they came to get you. And so, yeah, a lot of people are doing it. Greg, what is it you always say as a judge, or like in the case when someone's like, well, someone else is doing it. What's your whole take on that?
This morning when I was in court, because I sat as a judge in 4 cities in Utah, and this morning in court, I'll get a client, or not a client, the person that's in front of me, and they'll say, well, I'm being persecuted by the city because I'm only doing what everybody else is doing. And if you're going to persecute me, you should persecute them too. And it's like, we have limited resources. You're the case in front of me. If somebody else is violating the law and you're aware of it, then you should make a formal report to the officers, and they'll look into this thoroughly. So, but right now, this matters before me. The problem is, I think it's like playing Russian roulette. They're banking on a couple of things. I'm too small, not going to get the attention and garnish the attention. I can do it for a little bit, and as I scale, I can pivot. Those are all, you're lying to yourself on all of them, right? So yeah, Charlie, in the UK, because I have a lot of clients in the UK and all over the world. The bigger you get, does it draw more attention? Just naturally, because you're running more media. But doesn't mean that you can't get hit. I had a case where the settlement was a Rolex watch. It was a small player. I had another settlement where it was like a $20,000 settlement. Small player. So if you draw their attention and they bring the action, you're going to wish they hadn't. But I can speed on the freeway all the time I want, but until I get pulled over. But on this, when I get pulled over, it's not a speeding ticket. It's, I'm going to take as much of your money as I possibly can, not a $500 fine, $5 million fine, so you have to weigh the risks and balances. And there are a lot of companies that are doing it stupidly. And eventually you're going to just see more and more. In fact, yesterday I sent it to Onik. The FTC just released their 2023 annual report, and it's just mind-blowing the amount of money that they garnered, the number of actions they brought last year alone. And it's not going to get smaller. And I know a lot of you are like, hey, what if there's a president change this year? Is that going to help protect me on this? And when Trump came into office last time, assuming he were to win again this time, it didn't affect regulatory stuff at all. I know it's the same mid-managers that are all over the same departments. They don't change, the top dogs do, but the mid-managers that pull the trigger on these lawsuits, they all stay the same.
So Greg, I didn't get a chance to look at that report yet. How many cases did they bring forward? Because I was looking at like 2020, 2021, 22. They were kind of maintaining the 500 plus cases.
There's almost 1,000 investigations that they had in that
So they almost doubled.
Yeah. So, and it's all public. People can look at it. So
that's an ad. We got to run that ad. So
yeah, that's why I sent it to you. I'm not the marketer. I'm an attorney.
I don't know. I just thought you sent it.
Pinky in the
Can you
brain,
do me one
man.
favor though? Because I don't know how to read these. I read the other ones. That there's just so much blah blah blah. You lawyers just talk to each other in a different language. It's so frustrating. Talk English to each other. Well, you do. You're great. So sorry, I'm not taking it out on you, but the rest of everyone in your profession. So I want to know, from what I read, Greg, it looked like 2021, 22 was like between 300 to 500. But I don't know if that was like settlements or investigations. I'd like to know if last year they truly did double.
I will break it down for you, but yeah, they almost doubled. And you got to also think that end of COVID, if COVID ever ended or started, I don't want to start that, but anyway, the government did shut down for a while, right? So you got to think that 21, probably not a very accurate reflection of the number of cases, and 22 either. 23 is probably more of the norm of what you're going to see going forward. I mean, the IRS, another government branch, is looking to add like 10,000 new auditors or 100,000 new auditors this year just to stay on top of the workload. I wouldn't surprise me if the FTC's not trying to expand as well. So it's not
I
regulations.
did check their I
U.S.
checked their
Supreme
careers
Court.
tab.
Yeah, that's right. You're trying to apply. Anyway, so
Try to get a job at
U.S.
the FTC.
Yeah, the U.S. Supreme Court came out with a court ruling today challenging. There was a challenge against whether or not the Federal Consumer Financial Bureau is not based upon constitutional premises and wanted to disband it. And the U.S. Supreme Court said no. So that's another business that's out there that's another part of the government that you have to be worried about because they could get more actively involved too, especially when you're engaged in an offer that has to do with financial, markets and training and securities and so forth. So you just got to be careful on the way that you're engaging business because there is going to be more and more regulation out there. So
Yeah. Wow, that was interesting. So yeah, please on a separate side chat, I'd love to know more about that doubling down because that's I mean it just proves the point that we've been saying is that they are getting more thorough with what they're doing right now. Um, some other questions that we missed. Sean asked, Charlie just said, hey, that's turning our industry upside down. Um, so Charlie, I have a theory on this. I think that what we define as our industry is this weird thing that's been created over generations that was never really meant to be the industry. So, what is our industry? Our industry is an education industry, private education. I've always called
right,
private education, right? We
knowledge.
teach people things without the institution. So, I'm very good at driving traffic or building funnels, so I go teach how to build funnels. I don't need to like go through the university and then have a professor who's never built a funnel teach it. I like to go direct. Now, going through the university and adding all those layers would make the same training cost $20,000. I sell it for $1,000, so everybody wins, and I make money, and the person learns better stuff. Private education. That's what I've said our industry is. But since when did it turn into this like hype-filled, verbose, crazy promises? When think about it, like we say stuff, it's just false. When we're inside of the matrix, you don't realize how much of that matrix is actually deceptive. And I'm not saying this judgmentally to anybody. Guys, I've been in the industry and I'm very fond of it, and it's a big part of my heart is this info marketing, this private education space. And I have also been on webinars in the past and have said things like 15 bonus spots left, right? I had cut that out a good year and a half before the case even started because I had noticed that was a loose end in our compliance. But that means for many years prior, I had said things like that. Yet I'm a good person. I'm a God-fearing, God-following person. I take good care of people. I treat my customers well. That doesn't matter. When I say that there's only 15 spots left and then I sell 28, I lied. I lied. And when people start to think like that, you go, shit. That's what they see. And they're not wrong. I mean, people will always be like, you must hate the FTC. No, I actually don't. Like, I understand their perspective. I don't agree with everything they do, and I don't agree with some of the stands, and I don't agree with how harsh they can be on some things. That's okay. I mean, we get to disagree. We're Americans, but actually, in the end, I'm like, yeah, you're right. Misrepresentation. If you say something like a PDF is not worth $5,000. Your PDF and your bonus stack, it just isn't, right? But when we're in the matrix, we're like, yeah, we're normal. We're used to that. So what's happened is somewhat, I don't know how many generations ago, there was private education. But then this one person comes along and starts saying all this crap, and they like everyone looks at that person and says, "Oh my God, look at all the glitz and glamour over there, and customers are running over there, so we'll start saying this." And then with the next generation, they said more, and the third generation, they said more. So we are working off of habits that we've picked up from our mentors who are the elderly in our space, who picked it up from someone else and just grew from there. And it's gotten to the point where it's become obnoxious. And I really think it took me stepping outside of the matrix to look in and go, oh shit. And now it's like I'm coming back in to be like, guys, let's stop. But I wouldn't be doing that if I thought it means killing your business. I genuinely don't think that. I mean, I'm still in business, and I think I'm going to be scaling here again really fast. And I want to. And big part of me wanting to do this is literally to show people that it's possible to do this. And so, to your point, it's turned Charlie the industry as we define it lately, but that's not really what the industry is. But yeah, I hope that's why we call it the compliance revolution. I sent Greg a message yesterday about a very sour person who said, I'll read the message to you directly. And I'm not going to, it's not an attack on them or anything, but it was just funny because it's like, you do, it said, watching every single slimy marketer find God and change their ways after watching Onyx and Gall get sued is hilarious. I've been calling you all out since June of 2021. Don't you realize the internet's forever? And then the post image says, I caught heat for calling out gurus. One of them gets sued, and now all of a sudden it's cool to get called out. I'm like,
We don't
it's not what we're doing, but fine. First of all, we're not calling anyone out, but yeah, I think that if one of my services to this industry and Greg's services to the industry can be to clean it up and to show people how to do what they want, achieve the results they want, still be private educators, but do so compliantly, cleanly, and build better customers, then I'll take it. I'll say, go ahead, Charlie, say that the industry's been turned upside down for the better. Better.
And from my perspective, I watch as an attorney. You think that as attorneys, we're just like, hey, this is great. This is a money-making opportunity for us to take a case and litigate, negotiate with the government and look all great. But it's not all kicks and giggles. Even the money part of it. I mean, and believe me, I like the money part of it and appreciative of it. But I've seen good friends commit suicide. I've seen people die of heart attacks in investigations. I've seen the pressure that this puts on families and marriages break apart because they didn't understand certain principles. And it all could have been avoided. It 100% could have been avoided and their lives not ruined or changed. It's not just going through and paying $1 million in a settlement or $100,000 in a settlement. It's the process that it takes you through, the rabbit hole you have to go down. And when you come out, as Onyx said when we started this, it's like being in hell, right? Like it's the pleasure of being suffering twice as much. And it is. You watch it and it's horrible. And you can't stop it when it happens. Like I do my best, and Onyx will tell you, like I will fight like the dogs for my clients, and I will do my best to advocate their position and try to get them with the best settlement as possible. But sometimes at the end of the day, you're just like, you put your hands in your head or your head in your hands, and you're just like, there's nothing more that I can do for these people. And it hurts your heart. And because I care, and not all attorneys care, but I care.
Well, look, there was a video forwarded to us by another very, 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 very large, reputable guru who was asked. This is like one of those videos that leaks of like a secret video someone's like filming from and the question being asked to this guru was, hey, I watched Onyx and Greg's podcast and they say that every testimonial has to be disclaimed, and the advice that was returned to that person was holistically incorrect. It was made up. It was literally made up. It was just, there was no basis of it. I'm willing to guarantee that there is no attorney that even said that because it's so blatantly wrong, but they made up in response, and that is a problem. So part of the compliance revolution that Greg and I joke about, but we're creating, is that we want to go direct to the public and direct to the people that are trying to build businesses and get this information in front of you, because some of the top gurus that we are learning from, unfortunately, either are not informed, just don't know what they don't know, and they're just like what I was 2-3 years ago, no judgment, they just don't know, or ignorance. B, they know and don't want to acknowledge or accept because it will uproot the premise of how they teach marketing, and that's a problem. And so what we do, we're like, hey, we're going to throw out the real stuff for you, and do I like all of it? No. I personally think it's crazy that when I say, hey, here's how to build an offer that pays for itself, I'm like, but the rules would say that that's a problem, so I change it, and I say it the way I have to say. I think it's ludicrous that my highway next to my house speed limit is 55. It's dumb. It should be at least 60, 65. However, it's 55, and so when I drive, I try to follow that speed limit. Sean's asking a good question. Guys, we'll do a couple of questions and we'll wrap it up. Sean's asking, does our social media profiles and school communities need to be FTC compliant?
Your social media, are you driving traffic for money? I mean, is it monetary? I mean, they should all be compliant. I mean, it drives me freaking mind when I watch commercials for local like car dealerships. They're never compliant. But I mean, it just depends what you're doing with those. If you're using them as a basis for creating credibility for your business, then yeah, they absolutely should be compliant. I mean, they always should be compliant. That's like asking, is it all right if I speed if my wife's pregnant and in labor? Is that okay? I mean, do I get a pass for that? Well, you may still get a ticket. You're violating the law. It just depends on what you, I mean, it's still breaking the law, but it depends on what it is. If you're not driving, people to buy a certain product or service, but still, if you're misleading people, it may not be a lawsuit from a regulatory body, but you could really tick off some parents. Actually, it's funny you say that because I help with the state athletic stuff at one of the high schools here, and they had an issue this year because there was an ineligible player that made it on a football team that won in a playoff series, and it caused a huge media controversy. But the way they were promoting things on their social media sites for the law firms, it was hugely problematic. So if you're using it as part of your business and to draw like, hey, this is an example of what I do, that it needs to be compliant. It needs to be compliant.
So this is a tricky one, right? And I'll give you guys my 2 cents on this, and I'll let Greg chime in. It's a little bit difficult to police what people are saying in your communities and to always administer it, especially if your community is big. And I think context is what has really been the two terms that I think can really help everybody here. First of all, it'll help you calm down and take a deep breath. That I don't think there's a lot of rules in this book. And I don't think personally that if you break just one of them one time that you're going to wake up tomorrow morning with the FTC outside your door. It's just not how it's now. It could be, and that's enough technically, right? So you could speed one time and get pulled over for it. But it's just not how they tend to work because they have limited resources and lots of companies in the country doing lots of things, right? So it's a little bit about the context. So how bad is it? How often is it? And how deep is it going? This is why bigger companies tend to get hit first because they're just doing more of it, so the impact is bigger. So first is you've got this community and people are talking, they're sharing their own stuff. Are you promoting it? Are you taking screenshots out of it, putting it in your presentations? Because then all of a sudden the things they're saying, you're making it things you're saying, and now absolutely you better worry twice about being compliant. But if it's just this completely distant thing, and in that community, you're constantly focused on making the net impression and the context relevant, you're not pushing people to do it, you're not incentivizing them to do it, you're not creating a culture where people are promoting things or putting things in the group that are non-compliant, that context makes a big difference. And then the next thing is the net impression. So I have a friend of mine, Greg knows, and his Facebook group is full of income proofs and income shots.
Right.
And that group is not a group that you have to purchase the program to join. It's a huge group of people, of leads that are in that group too. Even the customers that are in that group, there is a upsell. He has a coaching program that he sells, and he actually pushes, promotes, and incentivizes you to post your screenshots of your success. In that situation, that person is being wholly uncompliant, non-compliant, because they are supporting and the context is messed up, and the net impression, right when you go to the group, you scroll, the net impression is everyone in here is making millions or making thousands of dollars. Now you have a problem with your group versus net impression is there's a support group, lots of great answers, and every now and then there's something that's snuck in there that you are not using in your marketing. It's not like you have to freak out and run out. That's what I've learned from Greg is and I don't think Greg would ever say that, so I'm just saying it. It's I also like to always bring calmness to people. It's they literally are not hanging around the corner from your house waiting for you to fuck up one time, and then they're going to come after you. It's got to be a little bit more than that, and you can protect yourself by constantly providing context and controlling the net impression. All right, we'll do some couple quick ones here. Can anyone file a lawsuit if an implied earnings claims is present in advertising, but someone signed a contract after they purchased the high ticket program? Greg and I talk about this all the time. Customers can come together and do a class action. There's nothing stopping them from doing it. So the FTC is not the only one you have to worry about. You got to worry about state AGs, and you got to worry about consumer lawsuits. Just straight up, one consumer sues you, and you got to worry about class action. It's like basically saying the 5,000-pound gorilla, 3,000. This is Greg's analogy. 5,000-pound gorilla is a FTC, state AG is 3,000, class action's a 1,000-pound gorilla, and a consumer lawsuit's a 100-pound gorilla. They all hurt. Some can.
They both rip your freaking arms off and beat you to death with them.
Yeah,
that's what
they all rip off your arms and beat
you. Don't win. You don't win.
Yeah.
We're not Andre the Giants. Like we just.
Carolyn says, every copywriting training program should include training on this, or at least mention the need to learn. Rarely included, though. Your material could be a bonus on other copywriting programs. Carolyn, bring it on. Help us. If you've got people you want to connect us to, do it. We are out there. We are doing as much of this as we can. I mean, right now, like we are on this. Greg and I get on conversations with small groups, big groups. We travel. We do events. We're doing whatever we can to get the message out. Sean says, it's a flywheel, usually broadcast message leading to ownership of data, sell higher ticket offer, for example. I'm just floored because I didn't know it, and I see social media all over making these ridiculous claims. I know. And that's the part of that's the revolution, Sean. You just joined the compliance revolution because you're informed now and you know that technically that's against the rules. And so welcome to the family. Ordering the book. Thanks, Sean. We appreciate you doing that. Well, guys, with that, it does bring us to the top of the hour. Like I said, Greg and I would tell you we could talk about this for days. We actually have talked about it for days. We've done entire events. And for me, it's become a really odd, I enjoy it. I like compliance. I don't know what's wrong with me. I never thought I'd be there, but I like reading the cases, studying what's what, talking to Greg, learning from him, and helping you guys out. So, Greg, any final words for everybody who's listening?
No, I mean, just take it to heart. Don't just listen to this and be like, oh, okay, that sounds good. That's great. I mean, take action on it. Do something. If you notice or recognize there are things in your marketing practices that are not in line with some of the things we talked about today, don't just assume I'm going to be too small, because I've had clients do that in the past, and maybe they don't get hit by the FTC, but they get hit by a state attorney general's office, and the process is just miserable. So take action on the things you've learned today. That would be the best thing you can possibly do, is just internalize it and be like, okay, hey, listen. And if you don't know what to do, you don't know. I mean, there are a lot of resources. We're one of those, but there's a lot of resources out there that can help you navigate the waters.
Yeah. All right. And listen, the other thing I would just leave you with is the message that's become all too common that we hear is, I'm too small. They're not going to come for me. I'll worry about this stuff when I get bigger. It's two parts. One, that's not true. Greg mentioned a case where literally they just took the Rolex watch. He had to sell it and pay them, but I've always joked, I'm like, there's an FTC lawyer somewhere walking around with a Rolex watch on. That's from his client. But you can settle for 15, 20 grand.
Actually, the Rolex is right here on it.
Right there. Yeah. And the first part is that it's completely untrue. The second part is the habits you build today, even when you're small, are the habits that are going to proliferate when you're bigger. It's very difficult to change those when you're doing millions of dollars. And the adage or the thought that you will or you can is false. Do it now. Make the changes now. Trust me, you'll thank me later for it. Take it from a guy who got and went through the hit. It was the worst thing I've ever experienced in my life, and you're talking to a guy that spent 90 days in the ICU without being able to get out of bed, had to go through a surgery that they said was a 50% chance of waking up from. I've had many problems, near bankruptcies, almost lost my life a couple times, have had 12 surgeries, and I'm here looking you dead in the eyes and saying that being investigated by the FTC for 18 months was the worst thing that's ever happened to me in my life. So just don't play the game. Know the rules and play that game. All right. With that said, Carla, thank you so much for having us.
Yes, thank you so much.
Appreciate you guys.
Absolutely appreciate both of you guys spending the time with us and helping us to become more compliant and just overall better marketers. So appreciate it, guys. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks, guys. Bye.